Hello, everybody. Hey, Molly.
Hi.
Hey, Emma.
Hi, everyone.
Wel- Welcome, everybody, back to the Glass Table Live. If you're just joining us, you are in for a treat. This is our third episode of Cults versus Cults. It is a live virtual Q&A, like a virtual roundtable, if you will, with extra Jehovah's Witnesses, which is yours truly, Spencer, Emma, and Molly. Will be the extra Jehovah's Witness panel today, and we have a member of the Amish, a former member of the Amish community and the Mormon community, or LDS. Because child, I talked to a Mormon, they got upset about me saying they were a Mormon. I guess I got to say LDS now, LDS. So why don't we go ahead and just jump right into it? And we have Cal, who's joining us today. He was on our first two episodes. Thanks for joining us, Cal. And we have Mary. This is your third time with us too today from the Amish community. And we have Sam Young, excommunicated. I can't talk today. Excommunicated former Mormon bishop. So am I right, Sam Young? Is saying Mormon is out? LDS is the new way.
Well, I was Mormon my whole life. They changed it about 3 years ago and said if you say Mormon, the devil gets a win and you offend Jesus. So if you say Mormon, you're offending Jesus. You just need to know that. So I was raised Mormon, and we were told to call ourselves Mormons for 60 years.
Yikes!
With every Mormon I've ever spoken to, the thing is they say that they say LDS because it's Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ and whatnot, and they're trying to keep Jesus Christ in the name. So,
yeah, that was the a definition that I was given when the Mormons visited me, and they were asking me to read the Mormon book and pray to God to make it seem. I forgot what they was asking me. What did they tell me? Pray to God. Read the Mormon, Book of Mormon, and pray to God to some prayer, that somehow that God would reveal to me that I guess the Mormon way was right or whatever. But anyway, so I will try to say LDS when I can remember. I just don't want to be offensive.
I don't think the two of us are ever going to care. We were both Mormons.
So we welcome everybody on YouTube as well as Facebook, and I am trying to get our Twitter stream up. As I do that, rather, I'm gonna go into our first topic, which is actually a big topic, given that we are coming off a historic election. Either way, depending whatever if you're a Trump supporter or if you're a Biden supporter, it's historic either way. They both get the most votes ever in history. So I thought we thought it would be nice. I think Mary, you brought up this question before about our views on voting. I'd be very interested on your views or your former cult's views on voting and government. So let's start with Sam Young. How do the Mormon view? That's not the right one, is it? This is the right one. There you go.
Okay, so how do the Mormons view voting and participating in civil government?
Yes. Now, can I say something? Proceed this by saying that one of an infamous Mormon in politics is Mitt Romney, who I actually like, who actually ran in the presidential election before. And I find it interesting him having to toe a different line. I don't know if Mormons consider him liberal or conservative. Like, what are participation in government and civil? At least you guys can do that. Jehovah's Witnesses are forbidden from taking part in any type of politics at all. So I'm interested. So you're not forbidden from voting or anything like that.
No, you're encouraged to participate in voting and to run for office. It's not forbidden. It's not discouraged. It's encouraged to participate.
Okay, so who wants to give the alternate view, I guess, given our former cult? Who want to lead us off, either Emma or Molly, on the Jehovah's Witnesses view on voting and government? Either one of you all can jump in. I'm trying to get our stream up here.
Amen. Okay. Do you want to, Emma, or should I? I can if you like me to. So basically, Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't allow you to, for example, in the US, you pledge allegiance. That's not allowed to pledge allegiance to the flag. In Hungary, at every like public event, at the beginning, we sing the national hymn, the national anthem. Not allowed. You need to either sit or stand in an inappropriate like stature so that it cannot be misunderstood that you're not standing because it's like that you want to, that you're standing because it's a must. You cannot participate in like student government either. Actually, any kind of like extracurricular activity they disencourage just in general. And for voting, you would be disfellowshipped so fast, and that would be the same for like for running for office. So even more so. So yeah, that definitely not allowed.
If I can just actually interject here, that also I would say that the Jehovah's Witnesses relationship with government is very complicated in that a lot of their it depends. It's referred to a lot of time as an apocalyptic cult or apocalyptic doomsday cult because of their prophecies. They take it, they are really obsessed with the end times. So you'll find that in our history that leaders being arrested for seditious comments within the literature, namely Rutherford. If you guys are watching, ex Jehovah's Witnesses are watching, or even some of our literature is really in some places, even Russia now, use it as anti-government sentiment because of some of the things that they say about overturning governments and the UN is going to attack everybody. And it's a lot. So our end times, I hear an echo. Is that a loud echo? Very loud.
That might be Sam.
Might be me.
Yes, Sam. Could you go ahead real quick? Cam mic, the setting, the gear on the bottom. Click that and then click echo cancellation.
Sorry, guys, we're doing this.
I don't see where it says echo.
What you know what I'll do?
Okay, on audio. So click cam mic, and then there will be an audio button with a picture.
Audio,
of
okay, audio.
Echo cancellation.
It's already checked.
Okay, so what I'll do, Sam, is that I'll just mute you. Make sure we'll just be conscious to mute our mics when we're not speaking. Yeah, so a lot of our literature or publications express anti-government sentiment as if, in some, especially in Russia, when they confiscated a lot of their magazines. When you read Russia's cases against a lot of the witnesses, that is one of the main things that they say. So yeah, Coach, Molly wrapped it up really nicely. Our views on voting and student government, and I would say that our relationship with government again is complicated because, witnesses will honor the wishes over the leaders over the government any day. That's just how we're trained to think. So, Mary, since this was again your question, why don't you elaborate on the Amish view here?
Well, the Amish view can really vary quite widely. I lived in, again, 5 different communities. And so in one of those communities, it was in the early 1990s, we had the Amish taxi driver that took van loads, like a 15-passenger van filled with Amish people to go vote. And in some of the other communities that I lived in, that was absolutely forbidden. It was not allowed. Like, you would have gotten in so much trouble. As far as holding public office, they don't do that. That's absolute no-no. But as far as voting, that varies by community. But they have a very complex relationship with government as well, because there's like this whole thing that happens when you're growing up Amish is kind of like you're almost taught to fear the government, and then you're taught to use the words that it's against my religion when you get in hot water. And so that kind of has shaped this almost apprehension by law enforcement at times to actually engage with the community or even any type of political thing because of that. Because there's a lot of the, how do you put it? There's a lot of people outside of the community that don't understand that that is something that they absolutely will use to keep themselves from getting in more hot water. Like, for example, in the state of Minnesota, they had a septic system issue where you had people who were still living in the community. They were not in good standing with the church, but they refused to build a septic system for their outhouses. And so the local authorities actually in that case said they had to follow those rules. And so they went to court. And when they went to court, they bring in this expert and everything. They still lost, but one of the things that came out in there was even though they're not in good standing with the church, the Amish church and community in that area still banded with them and supported them in that case, because that was more for them as a religion to say it's against my religion to use a septic system. Does that make any sense?
Okay, I just want to narrow this down. Are you saying that to use a septic system is against your like a formal beliefs, like that? Okay, you're saying septic system, right?
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've never heard that.
I grew up using an outhouse.
What a strange hill to die on, too. Like,
Yes.
I grew up using an outhouse, and I believe there are still Amish communities where they still use that, and they still do not have septic systems. And I will tell you what they do with their outhouse stuff is they will take the manure spreader to it, and they will spread it on their fields, for the record.
Yikes! That can cause all type of disease, and I mean, I know for sure. They say that China's leader does that or has been doing that, and they claim that people over there get sick and stuff from the crops and stuff. That is very interesting. So voting with the Amish is discouraged, right? Not encouraged at all. As a matter of fact, you could get in some sort of like disciplinarian type trouble, or
Well, it depends on your community. If you live in a community that is maybe more liberal than conservative, they may or may not. Like, it just depends on your community. Whatever your community says, and that's usually directed by the bishop,
okay.
they will put that out.
Now, for Jehovah's Witnesses, they consider it an automatic disassociation or automatic excommunication if you are found to be participating in politics in any way, and not just politics. They even political movements such as Black Lives Matter or other type of protests. You will find yourself automatically kicked out.
No, you don't participate in protests at all. Like, that's, or any type of movement. That's a no, absolute no.
Okay, so now, Cal, since we had Sam answer the original question, what about this question for you about how has your views evolved, or have they even evolved from you being Mormon? And maybe we can just go around the glass table and I'll answer that question, how our views have evolved briefly.
Yeah, so growing up, obviously I was raised by, as Mary can attest, an insane man. I was kind of like, I would say, I'd go out on a limb here and say that a large majority of Mormons, especially in the great state of Utah, are Republicans. And I'd say most of the ones I met are the kind where they just go, yeah, I don't really know much about politics, but I know I'm a Republican, so I just vote for whoever's red. I was raised, my grandfather raised me a little bit more libertarian. As I kind of left the church and kind of started thinking for myself a little bit, that's evolved a little bit further. I would say that I'm part of the I wouldn't say I'm part of a party. I would say that I'm part of a movement that is not very popular with the left or the right. So, you know, that's always fun. It's like Bill Burr says, the art of trolling is to piss off both sides. The difference is I'm not doing it to piss anyone off. I'm just doing it because I like freedoms. So
does it? But maybe Sam, you can answer this. Since you guys, because this is like a new concept for me. You know, ex Jehovah's Witnesses, we don't endorse candidates. Obviously, you can get excommunicated for participating in political activities. Do you? I mean, do they encourage you to be Republican, or I mean, you have? I mean, like, is it a church stance?
So I mean, obviously that is one of those things that might vary from bishop to bishop, but I never really had like a general conference meeting or nothing where they straight up said, hey, you know, vote Romney or whatever, vote red. But within communities, you'll definitely get people who kind of encourage things certain ways.
Okay.
The thing is, I don't know where Sam is from, but here in Utah, obviously, it's a very Republican state.
Right.
And being as the LDS Church pretty much owns our entire government, you know, they kind of get some leeway there, some sway over what happens. A couple years ago, we actually had a vote to legalize medical marijuana, and it passed 50-something to 40-something. But the LDS Church actually sent the government of Utah, like they sent our senators and you know, governor and all that, basically like a list of demands. When you get down to it, it basically said like, hey, we understand that people voted and the majority want it legalized, but also don't do that, do this instead. And then the government just did that instead.
Wow.
So
they got a lot of pull down there in Utah. Like,
yeah, they have a lot of pull. Actually, up in this is something just kind of less on topic, but more of a fun fact. Up in Salt Lake City, Utah, there's actually a big mountain that is owned by the LDS Church that they have basically hollowed out, and it is just filled to the brim with records on like members and on genealogy, like world genealogy, because the LDS Church is super into genealogy. Part of it because of that baptisms for the dead thing that we talked about last time. And then part, I don't even know, but they do have one of the world's biggest genealogy records with all of their membership records. And that in that mountain, you'll find every tithe I ever paid, of which there was maybe 5. I wasn't very good about that. But you'll find like all my tithe records. You'll find my temple recommend. You'll find everything about me, the date of my baptism and all that. So
we have a central place that we keep records. And we have records that are being kept within the individual congregations or halls themselves. But I thought of something else. Not only do the Jehovah's Witnesses have, you know, somewhat of an anti-government sentiment and discourage voting to the point that they consider it an automatic disassociation. In their literature and publications, they depict political entities as beasts and as you know, a great war is coming when they turn on each other, and the kings will be in the street and birds will be eating their flesh, and that kind of thing. Their theology is end times theology is that's like the foundation of it, and to believe that the government somehow is going to come after you one day to turn on religion, and you're going to be in a bunker somewhere and need to be delivered by God. So it gets really deep. So they really consider you dealing with politics as being a traitor, almost. So I'm sorry, Emma, were you?
I remember seeing as a kid in our literature, they had like the 6-headed wild beast, which was basically like a big red tiger with 6 heads. Was it 6-headed wild beast? think it was 6, and this woman sat on the back, like drinking a glass of wine, and they referred to government as Babylon the Great from Revelation, and it was all like anything to do with politics was always like made very like dramatic, fearful, destructive. You know, they're just and looking at stuff like that as kids, it is quite you don't forget it. So,
Well, they
yeah.
siding with the kingdoms or of the world, or siding with the political entities of the world. They made it seem like it was a conscientious choice against God. Like Satan ruled everything in this world, including all the political entities, uh, and put up the
Mhm.
leaders there.
But then
And
funny,
if somehow you had any type of allegiance to the flag, allegiance to the leaders, allegiance to your country, uh, any of that, any type of nationalistic sentiment is considered traitorous to the God you serve, because you are choosing uh, to be loyal to the government over God. It was not like no in between. It was a lot of black and white thinking. You whereas evangelicals and other mainstream Christian, and maybe even the Mormons, view the leaders and use the scripture in Romans by saying that they are set up by God in these places, and believe that they need to make the world a better place while they're here, and that God is using governments in order to bring about, whatever change that they're looking for. The witnesses are totally different. They really dark about they have really dark attitudes about government. They believe that the government is going to turn on them one day. So yeah, they're really suspicious and disloyal. I mean, don't not disloyal, but they're very suspicious and paranoid with government.
In
but even though they are,
I was going to say, in
sorry,
the UK,
but
you couldn't wear anything like with a flag on. I don't know what it's
No,
like in the US or where you are, Molly, but anything like with the British flag on, you could not wear it or have it in your house or represent it because it was nationalistic.
right, we don't really have like Hungarian flags and stuff. We are not a nationalistic like right now we are. Hopefully in 2020 now that one crown is out from the global playground, that will change. But any other way, nah, we don't have like Hungarian flags and stuff. But also funny about the Jehovah's Witnesses that if you check them in Hungary, there's a system for like accredited churches, and that system requires accredited churches to sign a document saying that this is a global institution. They are non-profit, so they don't do profit, and that they have been operating for at least 10 years. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses match all this, but then you have to negotiate and sign a contract with the Hungarian government that says I, Hungarian head of the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, will be beholden to the Hungarian state and abide by their laws. And in those laws, there are certain things that Jehovah's Witnesses most definitely don't keep intact, by the shunning and by not reporting child sex abuse, which I have on tape that they don't, by an elder, no less. And above that, they are still a member of the United Nations NGO panel. And I asked an elder about that, and he said, well, it's to protect our sisters and brothers when they are pioneering in dangerous territories. But then still they call the UN Babylon the Great. So it's like they need to beg to Satan for protection from Satan. Makes no sense, no matter how you slice it.
yeah, I just wanted to say that before we move on to not move on, but we can continue our discussion on voting, because I want to hear from Sam Young. That what was I about to say, child? I was about to say, you said something that triggered. It'll come back to me. Sam Young, how has your view? Let me take you off mute. How has your views evolved, if they have, since leaving the Mormons, on voting and government and civic duty?
I don't think they've really evolved much. The Mormon Church, which Satan just got a big win because I said Mormon again. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they really encouraged. They were active in. They wanted you to participate and to vote and to study things out. So not much has changed. I still feel the very same way that it's important to be involved in the political and arena, in the government arena. I thought I'd share with you, though, something that is definitely flies in the face of the Jehovah's Witness and the Amish beliefs. So this is one of our one of my former, I still believe this, but to some degree, to a large degree, but this is one of the Mormon Church's articles of faith. We believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, and obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. So that is something that the children memorize when they're children, and is one of the
Wow, that is a tenet of the faith. It's just mind-boggling to me as a former Jehovah's Witness. So I remember what I was going to say, y'all. If you are ex-Jehovah's Witness and you're watching the stream now, I see you guys signing off in the comments about the UN, and everything. Some of us older, maybe seasoned former Jehovah's Witnesses may know this already, but if you are a newbie, you might want to look up the Jehovah's Witnesses politics in Malawi. That was also a political situation where they were required to buy political cards, political party cards, in order to avoid death. The watchtower flip-flopped on their view of them buying those political cards, and it caused the death of many Malawians. They were slaughtered for it. So the best write-up that I've seen is Paul Grundy's write-up on JW Facts. He has a whole section on the politics, the political party in Malawi and the debacle that happened there when the governing body or our leadership was trying to balance not getting them slaughtered, which ended up happening anyway, with our own internal policies of not being neutral or no part of the world, as they say. So we are going to move along to our next question. So, and I'm going to start off. Actually, you know what, Mary? Before we do that, you had a really good question, which I want to touch on. You wanted to talk about technology, right? And whether or not I'm gonna write up a banner really quick, but I think that's a really good question about your cult's view or approach to technology. Now, for the Mormons, you guys are way more progressive than probably the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Amish groups. But I can tell you, for us, I would say starting in the 90s, because that's when I grew up, it was a big deal about going on the internet. You couldn't look at opposing views or doing opposing research. Molly, you probably can bring us up more up to date than the 90s, because it got really crazy around your time. They became more cracking down on people on the internet and in chat rooms.
Yeah. Well, I am 24, so I grew up in the time when the internet became like widespread available. And yeah, even like relatively innocent games like The Sims was frowned upon, because you could call the fortune teller or you could interact with like death, and you could you could see the Grim Reaper just appear and take your sim. So they were like, "You're not about to play that demon game in my house." And then when Facebook became available, obviously in like the early 2010s, around, they were very opposed to us signing up to Facebook, even if we never wanted to add any friends. just to interact with one another free of charge. Like, you know, when you needed to get something sorted, as in like plan something out or some stuff, but no, it wasn't allowed to sign up for Facebook.
Okay, so I'm gonna interrupt you just a second here and take a little bit back to the 90s because, like I said, I was a 90s kid, and in the literature in the 90s, they were telling us to stay away from. Don't laugh because I might be telling my age here, but AOL chat rooms, uh, message boards, uh, those were the devil. So when you would read the Watchtowers, you would be thinking like, "Oh, let me not get an AOL or whatever." So yeah, so progressively we go from AOL chat rooms to message board rooms to Facebook. And as far as technology, you would say, well, how is that relevant? Well, my husband is a huge tech guy. That was one of the things that attracted him to me, because he was helping me fix a computer. Anyway, that's a different episode. But but he used to have what you call it? It's not iPads, but you know those little the iPads that they use now. You know the little tablets, right? He would put information on his phone before the Watchtower would come out with the CD-ROMs or come out with an app. He would go and get apps, and oddly enough, him looking for an app is what woke him up. Fast forward, now all the Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't find a Jehovah's Witness without a tablet, because the elders used to tell him not to bring physical books, like that you couldn't read from a tablet from the stage. And now they read from tablets from the stage. So yeah, there are more progressive. I guess maybe, like I say again, the Mormons may be more progressive than maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses. But you said Mary, that your former cult had some issues with technology, internet, and all of that kind of stuff, right? Too, right?
Right. So I remember being, again, in the early 90s, of course. So when we went to the grocery store and they started using the debit card readers and credit card readers and stuff at the grocery stores, like, don't look at that. That's of the devil. We had a situation where we had to go to our non-Amish neighbor's house when I was very small, probably like 5. And the whole time we were there, it was constantly like, don't look at the TV. The TV is of Satan. He's gonna take you. Like, that there's no hope for your soul if you watch that. That's not good for you to see. Just things like that, like computers, TVs, internet. All of those things were very frowned upon, I guess, and not allowed.
That is interesting. But I mean, so I hate to ask this because you guys are progressive with voting and everything else. But Cal, Sam, did you guys, the Mormons, view technology as the boogeyman?
No, so I never did. I kind of got some of what you were talking about with the like the chat rooms and whatnot, Facebook and whatnot. But a lot of that was I'm a Zoomer, so I was kind of super young when those things started to come out, and my mom didn't want me fucking around with them. But also, just kind of the after school special shit where it was like, don't go on. I'm not gonna say AOL. That was dead and gone well before I started using computers. But
thanks a lot, Cal.
Yeah, no, you're good. But like chat rooms, shit like that, Skype probably. But it was mainly just because they were worried you were going to send nudes to strangers on the internet.
Okay.
Obviously, no one ever asked for mine because I'm remarkably overweight. But shit like that. Like, they were just worried you get taken advantage of on the internet.
Okay, well, it seems like the some Mormons that I've talked to who are also activists, and I'm not saying you guys aren't, but also activists. They say that the Mormons, like, there's a internet culture of not wanting to look at ex-Mormons, websites and stuff like that.
So, another thing I forgot to mention, by the way, you were talking about reading tablets. I'm sorry to just completely derail what you just said to me, but if you go to any Mormon, anyone in a first world country that has a cell phone, you'll find every single one of them has the same app, and it's literally just the canonical 3 books: the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, and the Doctrine and Covenants. That's the 3 books that the Mormons use.
Okay.
So you'll find it's an app. It's a black. It's got a gold picture of the angel Moroni on it. Every Mormon has that, just because it's so much more convenient for like highlighting shit.
So Sam Young, ex-Mormon literature, websites, all of that kind of stuff is just totally out, right?
Okay, so there were the LDS Church had some, and still has, big concerns about the internet. When it first started coming out, there was lots of warnings in conferences and at church about pornography. And it seemed like every conference you're going to hear pornography mentioned numerous times. Now, for some reason, that started calming down, and they still talk about it every once in a while, but nothing like they did in the late 90s and 2000s. But that was a big concern, that you need to protect your family, protect your children from the pornography that was now easily and readily available. The second thing is that the church only wants its members to get information about the church, its history and its doctrine from church sources. Now, this is a very common mechanism that cults use to control their membership, is to say you can only read the following things. Otherwise, it's a big fat sin and dangerous to look at anything that is not provided by the church. So the Mormon Church was continues to talk about that you should not go to sites that are not approved by the church to get information about the church.
Now, with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't know if Emma, you can expound on this, or Molly. Jehovah's Witnesses are also, like you said, it's very common with cults, have a measure of information control too. You can't get information about the Jehovah's Witness religion in any other place other than the official almighty JW.org website. You can just forget about it. You can't.
Can I just?
You in the groups, Emma, you probably attest to this. Putting down any other site like JW Facts, they view that as the devil. Like you put down JW Facts, they no. You got to go to JW.org. And the thing, also, I would say about the Jehovah's Witnesses is that if you are found researching apostate websites or even telling other people about the information that you've learned from apostate websites, you could be summoned into a judicial meeting and subject to excommunication for apostasy. You can't just say, hey, you can't just freely talk about information within the congregation that you've read off a site. Go ahead, Emma.
Well, I left in 96, so the internet wasn't really around then, and my uncle and his friend had been looking in the bound volumes and picking out contradictory things. Now, for those that don't know, the bound volumes are Jehovah's Witnesses release the Watchtowers and Wakes, and then they'd put them in like big chunky books all together. So they'd keep them as reference, so then they could go back and check what was written in their literature by year. So they were looking through the bound volumes and they found contradictory stuff, and they were told to stop researching the JW org publications because it was apostasy.
No,
last year when
I'm sorry, let me cut you off.
It was and as you said in those JW groups, when I was telling them, I've mentioned this before, to go and look at their own policies written on the JW.org website, they wouldn't even go onto their own website. And a few of them accused me, saying, oh, that's being altered by apostates. And I was like, are you joking? If we apostates went onto the JW.org website, somehow hacked it, do you not think the JW.org will come after us? There's no way we could have possibly done that. And so they even refused refused to go onto their own official website to look at what the governing body had actually written.
So Sam Young, that's an interesting question because you guys have you have doctrinal changes and I don't know if you call them doctrinal changes, but where you have changed things. Now, if somebody was to insist on a doctrine or a policy that has been changed, right? Would that cause friction between you and the church? Like, look, I know that I don't know, the big guy in Mormon, whoever he is, maybe change this doctrine or change this policy, but I'm gonna go ahead and stick with what we used to do before. Like in the Jehovah's Witnesses, you could be subject to excommunication if you start spreading around that you don't agree with new light or new changes or within the organization. I'm just wondering if it would be similar within the Mormon.
Well, it could be. It kind of depends on what the change is. For example, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the church changed its doctrine about polygamy. Before that, if you wanted to get to the highest heaven, you had to have at least 3 wives here on the earth. You had to be a polygamist. Well, that changed because the federal government put a lot of pressure on the church. I mean, they were going to confiscate all their assets. And so they were putting leaders of the church in jail. The leaders of the church were hiding all over the place. Anyway, so they changed it. A lot of members of the church didn't like that. They had more than one wife and wanted to take more women as wives. So they felt like this was an eternal principle. They were looking forward to when they died, they're going to go to heaven and have thousands of wives, have children through the eternities. Kind of sounds like a sex cult when you talk about it that way. But anyway, there was a lot of schisms at that point in time, a lot of breakaways of what is termed fundamentalist Mormon religions, where they insisted they were not going to follow the prophets. So they broke away. Many of them were excommunicated, and those breakaways still exist today. And you're probably familiar with some of the high-profile cases where one of the prophets of a polygamous sect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So something like that today, if you say, look, I'm not going to be, I don't accept that change, you're going to be excommunicated from the church. Kind of like if you say, I don't think you should ask a little girl if she masturbates, you're going to be excommunicated from the church, like me. And then here's another one. When, for the longest time, Mormons, and it's still embedded in their doctrine, these racist doctrines. It was embedded in the doctrine that if you have black skin, that was a curse from God. You're descendant from Cain. The men would never receive the priesthood. The black men, even if they joined the church, they wouldn't be allowed to receive the priesthood until every other white man received the priesthood. So that meant basically, who knows when that was going to be? Never. And neither the men nor the women could enter the temples. Okay, so there were certain places. It wasn't a bus where the black people had to sit in the back and the white people in the front. There was no place for black people in the temple. They were forbidden. Now, that was just basically a super racist thing, that black people couldn't inherit heaven because you had to go to the temple in order to get into the highest degrees of the temple. You could be a servant.
Well, I'm so glad you opened about that, Samuel, because I asked the Mormon guy who was trying to study with me and told me I had to pray over the Mormon book to see if it was real or not. I forgot what he asked me. When I asked him about the history, the racial history of the Mormons, because I had read it online, he was very dodgy. He was trying to tell me rewrite history, basically said it didn't happen the way that I read it. And I flat out asked him whether or not the Mormons ever apologized, like some of the other religious groups have apologized for the history. And, I haven't heard from him since, but that's pretty much how that goes.
They have never apologized. In fact, one of the highest leaders in the church, one of the apostles, publicly said the church does not give apologies. Well, that's basically a prophet of the Mormon church stating doctrine that the church never apologizes. And the concept behind that is whatever the church does, it's directed by God. So it was God that wanted black people not to be able to get into heaven unless it was you're a servant. It was God who wanted to, it was God that was racist. Now, they're not going to say that, but they're saying the doctrine came from God. We may not understand it. We're not going to apologize for it. No, it was racist. Well, let's see. So in 1978, they changed their doctrine to allow black men to receive the priesthood and black men and women to enter the temple. Now, there were some members of the church that didn't like that. And so if they didn't like that, they may be set outside of the church. I don't know if anybody was excommunicated over it, but they would not be able to actively participate in the church if they were going to deny people from entering the temple or receiving the priesthood. Now, there are other minor things that if there's a church policy change, that if you didn't abide by it, nobody's going to really care. You're not going to be excommunicated for it. For example, you may not know that, well, Emma should know, but Emma has committed a super egregious sin in front of God in that she's got a piercing. Okay.
Me too.
Pardon?
I said, me too. I got like 4 on my face and I got a bunch of tattoos.
Okay.
Well, no wonder you're an ex-mo, Cal. Tattoos and piercings. Oh my gosh.
I got you can't see it. I got my septum. I got a lip. I got my ears are stretched out to 10 mil. So
those were big no-nos in the church.
Within a week, I went and had piercings and put red strips in my hair and booked in for a tattoo the week I left. So, you know.
Well, today, so that's kind of has been a policy in the church. They don't talk about it much anymore. If somebody has a tattoo or a piercing, they have committed a huge sin in front of God, but they're not going to be kicked out of the church for it. Well, you know, it's tongue in cheek, right? That they're a big sin.
Okay, so speaking of that, I want to bring Mary in here. I already feel like you're going to tell me that tattoos and piercings was out. But can you just confirm that they were?
No tattoos, no piercings, not allowed. That's like a absolute no. Which I also find it interesting because I'm sitting here looking and I see everybody and I see Emma has a blue eyeshadow. And so does Molly. It's very pretty. But did I ever share with you guys the blue dyeing the hair blue story? So when I was a little girl, I was always told this story about somebody like me, an Abgangene, because that's our equivalent of apostate is an Abgangene, who really loved the color blue. And she went and got a blue dress. She painted her nails blue. She put on blue makeup. And then last she dyed her hair blue. And then she died, like physically died. So I dyed my hair blue earlier this year, and I kind of had like a whole realization because for about an hour I had the biggest panic attack. And I just thought it was interesting that you guys have this beautiful blue.
Well, I would say like in the makeup, let's just because we like makeup, so you will just say quickly, like bold makeup was not a huge no in the Jehovah's Witnesses, and as far as tattoos and piercings was definitely out because for some reason my mother thought that people who were a lot of tattoos, like you had a few tattoos, she give you the side eye because you're not supposed to have any. But like I'm just saying, like worldly people or people, I don't know if you guys used to call non-members worldly or however you guys refer to
English.
What is it?
English.
Okay. Well, we call them worldly. If you had two tattoos as a worldly person from my mother, she felt like you was worshiping Satan. She just did. Or if you had tattoos or piercings or any type of markings or anything like that, satanic.
I wonder now. I would never ever go back. But I wonder now. Obviously, I am literally like God. So if I went back to the Kingdom Hall now, would they make me like dress head to foot covered, cover them up, or would
Yes,
they accept
yes.
that
My sister,
they are
my
already
adoptive,
there?
my
Because
adoptive
some
sister
guys in our
went back.
congregation were in the Navy and they had tattoos, but their shirts covered it.
Yeah, but
But if
yeah,
you're a woman, would you still have to cover up all your tattoos?
yeah. When my sister, adoptive sister, went back, and she had tattoos. Yeah, she either had to remove them or cover them up full time while she was in the ministry. But can I share with you the story of how I was called a Jezebel while we're talking about makeup? Let me show you a picture just to get an idea of how it approximately looked. I don't know if you can see, there's like some very, very light pink makeup on my eyes, basically. It's not even visible on this picture, but in real life it kind of was. Some like very like Barbie pink glitter that was barely seen. And you know, whenever we did makeup, the like my adoptive parents would be like, don't be such Jezebels, like you don't need to wear makeup. Or when we wore like more than one item of jewelry, as in like we wore maybe earrings and a necklace was okay, but if you wore bracelets too, then that was just like such a Jezebel thing, like, oh my god, why would you
Oh, you know
why
what?
would
Oh,
you
good. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
so so yeah, when I graduated like primary school, and my sister did this like Barbie pink makeup on me, they were like giving me the side eye when they saw me.
Now, my mother felt like that about red. If you wore red lipstick, that means you was trying to be a harlot. If now, Amy said something. She actually said that if you have to cover your tattoos if you want to go out in the ministry work, or if you want to be able to get parts on the stage. That's very true. Back when they called elders presiding elders, there was a presiding elder that we had that used to be in a motorcycle gang. So he had all these bad tattoos, but they was like bad tattoos, like people was doing with E-Pen. I don't know what it was. They look like jail tattoos. They didn't look like the good ones. And he would cover, like, he would be so embarrassed. Like he would always like wear long sleeve shirts, and the dead of summer be like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and he's wearing long sleeve shirts out in the ministry. But that brings us to our next question here, and I want to see if we can start off with Sam with this question about your former cult's view. I think this should be a good one about proselytizing. This is a huge with Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. It's something that they're actually known for. We kind of do we're actually slightly competitive with y'all. The ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are slightly competitive with numbers with the Mormons. So let's talk about how huge it is, and then we'll go to Mary, because I think you're gonna tell me y'all don't proselytize, but we'll see. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, we don't proselyte to the Amish. That probably says it all, right? Okay. Of course, proselyting is a gigantic thing in the Mormon church. There's a phrase from a prophet a while back where he said, every member a missionary. So every member is supposed to be a missionary. All the members are supposed to be reaching out to their friends and neighbors. Now, frankly, most people don't, but you're taught to do that all the time. And anytime you're in conversation or any activity with somebody who's not a member, that's what's on your mind. You're thinking, and how can I bring this up? Now, again, most people don't, because you're embarrassed or intimidated to do that, but you're encouraged to do that. Every ward has what is called a ward mission leader. It's a member of the congregation that his responsibility is given the responsibility to work with the missionaries, work with the members to advance proselyting in that congregation. And the gigantic one is that all boys are supposed to serve a 2-year mission. That means full time. They pay for it themselves. They give up dating. They give up TV. They give up music. They give up school. And 24/7, they're on a mission proselyting full time. So that's a gigantic thing in the Mormon church. And now the women, in the past, the women it was kind of optional. It's still kind of optional today, but it's encouraged a whole lot more now than when I was younger in the church.
Okay, so thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and go to Mary. But before we do, I just like to say that that's very interesting that the women, it's optional for them to do ministry or apostolizing in that way, because in the Jehovah's Witness organization, the women do the bulk of it. They do the far majority of the apostolizing. So go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Cal, let's get you in here.
So I will say that while it is optional, every gal I ever went to school with, every one of them, or a lot of them, went on missions and whatnot. A lot of the people here in Utah do. But I did want to say this, and this kind of ties back to something that we were talking about a while back. But I think it's when y'all were talking about Malawi. But in certain parts of Africa, when women get sent on missions there. So I don't know if y'all have ever seen a Mormon missionary. I'm sure you have.
Actually, 2 Mormon missionaries was sent to me by let me tell me how quick y'all is. All I said was that I was interested in knowing a little bit about the Mormons to another Mormon online. He sent Mormon missionaries to my door like that weekend.
Yeah, you told that story, but
yeah.
So a male Mormon missionary is going to be wearing a white shirt, tie, black trousers, black slacks, possibly a jacket should the weather allow it. The women, however, and I'm sure I've bitched about this on the podcast before, but women in the LDS church get to wear dresses, very colorful ones, which kind of bummed me out when I was a kid. But in certain parts of Africa, women either aren't allowed to serve missions there anymore, or they aren't allowed to wear dresses anymore because they keep getting raped. And the LDS church kind of doesn't like that fact. They kind of don't talk about it a whole lot, but and it's funny because they always say, especially when you're growing up and they tell you about when you go on your mission, because it is expected for you to go on a mission. They'll tell you when you're on your mission, God's going to protect you and all that. And we have films and stuff. Sam, I don't know if you watched that film a couple years back about those missionaries who got kidnapped in Russia and ransomed. But they have all this media that tells you about how you're absolutely, God's going to protect you, but then women keep getting raped and murdered in Africa. So
okay, so Shannon Rowland is asking, I don't know if you want to follow up here, Sam, do women do they go door to door? I think you kind of answered that.
Yes.
But do you have time requirements? Because in the Jehovah's Witnesses, we have quotas that we average quotas that we are encouraged to meet. I'll say encouraged, but it's like you're really supposed to meet them.
Okay, so there's 2 different answers to that. First of all, you have the full-time missionaries that are the boys now are asked to serve at 18. So from 18 to 20 for 2 years, full-time. The girls, it's at age 19, from 19 to 21. So they all will go door to door. Now, that's the full-time missionaries. That's a huge force. It used to be I don't know what it is today, but it used to be 60, 70, 80,000 missionaries out there. That's been declining. Now, when you're not a full-time missionary, you basically do not go door to door. You support the missionary work in other ways, like introducing your friends and neighbors to the missionaries, to the church. But again, not a lot of members do that, although they're told to do that a whole bunch. But once you're not on your mission, you don't go door to door. Now, time requirements, well, obviously the kids, it's 2 years, 24/7, big time requirement. When you're not a missionary, in every ward, I mentioned they have what's called a ward. An award is a congregation. In every congregation, someone's called to be, and it's a part-time calling, no payment. You're called to supervise the missionary work. Ward or congregation missionaries are also called, where that's your responsibility. It's not to teach a kids class. It's not to teach the adults. It's not to be a president of an organization. It's to do missionary work. And they used to put time requirements on that. The first time I was called into that, which is 40 years ago, 35 years ago, they asked me to serve for 20 hours a week. doing proselyting activities. They don't do that anymore. So the only time requirement is with the kids for 2 years.
Okay, so quickly about time requirements. If you are joining us and you are not familiar with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was a former full-time minister within the Jehovah's Witness community, and the requirements started off. I think right when I joined, there was a 100-hour requirement a month, but I just missed that, and then I had to. They adjusted the requirement to 90 hours a month, being devoted to door knocking and letter writing and other various forms of ministry that we have. And then the requirement now is 70. And then there's kind of like you can do it seasonally if you want to, and you don't have to actually make sign a commitment. Because once you sign a commitment as a full-time minister, that's for life. It's not a 2-year requirement. You just do it until you can't do it anymore, or you decide you don't want to do it anymore. But we called it auxiliary pioneering, where that was kind of seasonal, and you kind of did it around what people would call communion, and we called it the memorial and other special occasions and stuff like that. So we're gonna. What about you, Mary? Was there any form of proselytizing among the Amish?
No, not in the Amish communities that I lived in. No, it was absolutely a privilege to be born Amish, and to reject that and become an Afghan is you rejecting your birthright of being born Amish. There have been some people that have become Amish, but they're never actually like fully accepted, because they'll always be known as those people who were not born into it, so they were not privileged and they were not blessed.
Shannon, go ahead.
And
I was gonna say.
And I was going to circle back to something Sam said earlier. Like, my community did also teach me that the descendant of Black people came from the Cain and Abel story and all of that, and they were cursed by God. I've never met an Amish person that's Black, by the way.
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you were joining our stream and you're not familiar with the Jehovah's Witness views, and some of the people who are on our stream, maybe former Jehovah's Witnesses, don't know that. You can look up the very racist remarks in the publications and the segregated congregations here in America that we used to have, and a plethora of lists of things that we used to say about Black folks way back in the day. So we're gonna shoot it over to Cal.
So I was just going to mention up a couple of things that I've kind of built up over the course of this whole episode. So some of these are kind of stretching back a little bit. But one of the things that I was curious about from the J-Dub community was Australia. So in Australia and in certain other countries, voting is mandatory. You have to vote. And I was curious how, because y'all can't vote, curious how y'all handle that, if y'all knew.
We can definitely get. I don't know if maybe Emma and Molly can answer, but I could say our Australia. If you're on our stream, because I know that we are a little earlier and we don't get our Australian audience. Maybe you can let us know in the comments. But offhand, Emma or Molly, do you know how they handle that in Australia where it's required?
I didn't even know that. That's news to me. So.
Yeah, so that's something we can look up. And Cal, you said you had a lot of stuff built up. What's the next one you got on your list?
I just have a few things. So I writing them on my hand to keep track. I have bad memory. So I did the mission one, asked the Australia one. I was going to mention a comment thing. It's probably gone now. I think it was David Wicklin here was asking about, or he made a passing comment that Gordon B. Hinckley, who I think is still the president of the Mormon Church. No. Okay. So anyways, he was comparing Gordon B. Hinckley to a prominent member of the J-Dub community, and I was curious how accurate that was, but, that's in the past now. See, did the Africa thing. Only have two more. There's no smooth way to transition to these. I apologize for just absolutely throwing a wrench in the whole works here. But the first thing I was going to, or the next thing I was going to mention here was there was a cult in Japan started by a man named Shoko Asahara. And I think there are still some people out there who used to be a member of that cult. That would be fascinating to get onto this show because those guys were fucking insane. They dropped a bunch of like VX nerve gas on trains in Tokyo and a bunch of other shit. The dude was insane. They made an anime to promote their religion. Strange people. They also owned like a bunch of Russian helicopters for a period of time, which, you know, I don't know. But there are still people out there that weren't. A lot of Shoko Asahara himself was hung, which is impressive because he was way larger than I am. They had to get some heavy duty rope for that one, but him and a bunch of the other members were hung in Japan. But there are still some people out there who used to be members. That might be interesting. And then the last thing goes back to the computer talk we were having. Are any of you familiar with a man named Terry Davis?
I've never heard of him.
So Terry Davis was insane. He had schizophrenia, and he was very remarkably intelligent, and that cannot be understated. He was a very intelligent man. He worked for MIT for a while. He designed one of the first CNC routers, which is a way of cutting out wood with computers. But he also invented something called Temple OS, and that shit is whack. Definitely look it up if you get a chance. It's awesome. So he says that God came to him in a dream and told him to make an operating system for a computer based entirely on a biblical theme. And y'all may not understand entirely what I'm talking about here, but it only ran VGA. It only ran 16-bit colors. The whole thing booted from kernel the whole time. Really impressive operating system. And he wrote the entire code by himself, by hand, like with no assistance from anything else. And he actually, so the code was based off a coding language called C, but his was called Holy C, as in, you know, Holy See, the Catholic thing. It's insane. And he has YouTube videos. I'm going to warn y'all right now. He's schizophrenic and an intense religious man. So he's a little bit racist. But definitely check those vlogs out. They're super entertaining. This guy was nuts in the best way. It's so impressive. He got hit by a train last year. The man's dead now. Whatever deity there may be, rest his soul. But, you know. That is definitely something everyone should be checking out is Temple OS. That's a rabbit hole if you've ever seen one. All right, now I believe that has checked off everything that I needed to derail the entire show for. Next topic, please. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, Cal. Thank you so much for giving us the information. So we have a question from the Glass Table Live about what is your former cult's view on military service? I want to start with Mary on this question, because I'm thinking that you're going to tell me you guys are conscientious objectors. I don't know why I'm guessing.
You're guessing?
I'm guessing. That's my guess. So why don't you clarify and tell us?
They are definitely conscientious objectors. If you become an Afghana and you join the military, there's like a 99% chance you could never, ever return.
Oh, wow.
Even if they do, what if they do like a Hacksaw Ridge thing where they no weapons, only as a medic, like that kind of thing?
Literally depends on your community at that point, but no, that goes against everything you were ever taught.
There.
What about so Sam? I don't know if you want to give us what is the official church view on military service before we get to Jehovah's Witness view here.
He is still muted.
Oh, he's still muted. I'm sorry. There you go. I'm sorry, Sam.
I think I come across best when I'm muted.
You know, you can unmute yourself, though. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep you on mute. I really apologize.
Sure, right, Spencer. Yeah,
I did.
Right.
I did.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, so again, I read that article of faith about that we're subject to king's presence, magistrates, and that we support and sustain the law. Well, if the law and the government is we're going to war, the church basically supports the members of the church being in the military. Now, they would highly encourage the boys to go on a mission rather than enrolling in the military service. If you want to enroll in the military service after your mission, great. And they would support that even if you didn't go on your They basically support.
Actually, I have a personal story about this. So, in my ward growing up, and like Sam said earlier, a ward is just in every church building, you're going to have multiple wards, and a ward is just people from different areas around the church that show up at different times. But in my ward, there's this great Korean family, and one of the older siblings of this group of siblings actually enlisted in the army to go to, man, what year was that? Probably would have been Iraq. I'm not sure, but he again, I can't speak for the church as a whole. I don't know the church as a whole. I can say this: in our communities, in our wards and everything, it was seen as equal to serving a mission. He was like, and so when you serve a mission in the LDS church, when you come back from your mission, you get up in front of the whole ward and you give a speech talking about your service and all that. And then you also sometimes, usually, if it was a foreign speaking mission, if you went to, say, France, you would give another speech entirely in French, say. But when he came back from, his service, and by the way, this guy got like 3 Bronze Stars, a Purple Heart, like 2 or 3 Purple Hearts. He did a lot of stuff. But they had him up there, and he was given a speech just like he came back from a mission. It was seen as equal to serving a mission, which is a little bit strange, but
Okay, so we have David here who's saying that Jehovah's Witnesses, that we could technically classify ourselves, or our former cult, as conscientious objectors. Technically, even we know that Tony Morris went to Vietnam, y'all. Because if you haven't seen Tony Morris, which is one of our leaders, or one of the leaders of the Jehovah's Witnesses, talking about people burning in like hot dogs during the Armageddon. I mean, he has a lot of flashbacks when he gives very colorful illustrations of what he thinks Armageddon might look like. But as far as the Jehovah's Witnesses, joining the military is an absolutely no, because they review it as, or Jehovah's Witnesses view it as, that you're forming allegiance with the government, and they pride themselves on being. They think they are. You should see in my group. I have a group of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they talk. And they always say, well, we don't go to war. Other religions do go to war. So they pride themselves on not going to war with other countries, because their famous scripture that they like to use is that, the world will learn war no more. It's one of their biggest things. So I guess, David, I kind of agree with you that they may be considered maybe a pacifist religious group. They have as a part of their theology, they believe that the Bible actually discourages war, and they try to be neutral. As far as civil services during the war, it really depends on where you live. I think Cal mentioned that. Like, instead of, if you're not on the front line, can you do civil service? It really depends on where you live, because again, if you were in Malawi, if you look that up, you might have a different view of how they operate there. But here in America, you can't do any type of forms of civil service. Now, I've heard of people in other countries are able to do that as Jehovah's Witnesses, but again, it kind of depends on where you live, I guess.
I'm curious if any of you know, maybe Molly might, as she's probably the closest in proximity, but in Switzerland, you have to do, when you turn 18, they have conscription. You have to serve. And when I say serve,
Yep.
It's not really service. Switzerland isn't at war with anyone. It's mostly just you get trained how to use a gun, and that's pretty much it. But if you don't agree with that, you can also do be a firefighter or be, I think, a paramedic. And you can do that instead of going, doing the military conscription. So I'm curious, Molly, if you know if JDubs are allowed to do the firefighter or the EMT thing.
I wouldn't think so, because it's still like violence, and they are using guns and stuff.
However, Molly, that might be true where you live at, but I have several family friends who are firemen who are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, because that's what I'm saying is
Right.
also Sam's microphone is doing the thing again.
Okay, let me go. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, Sam, your microphone is echoing.
I don't think they would. I don't think. I don't think they would be able to because we were taught, at least here. So, that could change because, as we know, religion is hella inconsistent. But
Yeah.
we were taught that bungee jumping, playing ice hockey, any boxing, any kind of like kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, any kind of
but-
stuff like that would put your life at risk, such as like a firefighter, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I don't know if Swiss congregations, because of this, might skewed with the rules a little. However, it's also funny. We mentioned like civil services and political neutrality and all that. How Jehovah's Witnesses had letter writing campaigns to Adolf Hitler or the USSR or to Putin, and the US Supreme Court to, like, for Hitler to praise them for addressing the Jewish question. Real nice. 10 per 10. And then to the USSR to, hey, please don't put us in gulags. Thank you. 10 per 10.
But that one
And
didn't
then,
work. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that one didn't work.
I didn't think so. And then to the US Supreme Court just recently, I think like less than 2 or 3 years ago, when the New York Child Victims Act was enacted, and they made strides to end the clergy penitence, stuff, so that no matter who you are, if you're a priest, a bishop, or whoever the fuck you are, you will need to, like, if you hear of abuse, you fucking report it. So they wrote to the US Supreme Court to stop that from happening, and then they had letter writing campaigns to Putin to be like, hey man, can you not, like, ban our religion, please? And they encouraged Jehovah's Witnesses to, like, actively go out of their way to write letters to Putin to interfere with Russian politics. So that's that religious, political neutrality for you.
So we're approaching the end of our stream here, so I wanted to actually get to one other question before we go close out with a small presentation from Mary. We were talking backstage or a few hours earlier today. So the last question is this, and I had a few other ones, and I'm so sorry we didn't get to all of them. But what is your former cult's view on divorce? So I guess we'll start with the Jehovah's Witness view. Emma, you want to take this one?
Well, I never really got that far, to be honest. I got engaged and called it off, so I'm probably. But I have looked into it where basically, unless your partner commits adultery, which is having sex with somebody else, then you can't divorce them. And somebody in my family, her husband was really abusive, and there was an elder that basically groomed her, and he was married, and they ended up having sex, and the elders found out. I don't know who told the elders, but she got a much harsher punishment than what he did, and her husband chose to stay with her. They didn't get divorced, and then apparently that guy has also slept with other women, and he just got slapped on the wrist. But then, like, this family member, her husband was abusive to her physically, mentally. She left him. The elders came around to try and talk to her. They'd been camping outside her house, watching who was coming and going. And they've seen that a male that she worked with had come into her house. So they tried to speak to her, and they bust in her house trying to read scriptures. And she was like, "Get out of my house." So without no judicial committee, they just fellowshipped her because she left her abusive husband and refused to stay single for the rest of her life. They had no proof that anything was going on with this man. He was just visiting her. So even if you leave somebody who's abusive to you, you still get punished. And I can't remember the date, but there's a watchtower where it says, basically, they quote scriptures that say that if you leave your husband, your children are unclean. And they say about abusive relationships, even if your life is at risk, some witnesses have chosen to stay with their partners because then sometimes their partners come around and basically convert to being a witness.
So
So
yeah, with divorce,
when your life is at risk and you divorce, it's frowned upon, and you will get punished for that.
Yeah,
you can
like
be
Maria,
excommunicated,
that's if
you can be excommunicated with for getting what they consider an unscriptural divorce. They have guidelines. They say that abuse, severe abuse, like some abuse, which makes you think that some abuse is okay. They expect you to put up with, but severe physical abuse is not divorce. You can get a separation or something like that. But if you are a person that gets what they view an unscriptural divorce or a divorce that's against official policy, you could be subject to not having privileges, meaning for men that can mean giving talks or being used in various, uh, you know, uh, positions within the or congregation. Um, and be silenced. I know there was I had a know of a elder. He was a former elder who got in a situation, and he remained married to his wife because of a little rule that witnesses have that if one spouse cheats on another, if the other spouse shows forgiveness to that spouse by resuming sexual relations. And so this particular uh, person or his wife uh, didn't forgive him for like 20 years. And so it was in a situation where he couldn't divorce her, but he was receiving alienation in the marriage from sex. And it's more common in the Jehovah's Witness community than you realize, that a lot of marriages, they come together because of sex, they end over sex, but a lot of people stay together because they don't want to lose their standing within the Jehovah Witness organization, which can happen because if someone in your household, namely your wife, is doing something that is contrary to official policy within the Jehovah's Witnesses, you as the man can be subject to lose your privileges. So your marriage bond within the church is so tied up within each other that people make decisions about being in the Jehovah Witness community, uh, big decisions about marriage and divorce. Now, does it happen within the community? I don't know about where everybody else lives. Um, no, it doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen often, and when it does happen, people automatically assume that somebody cheated on somebody. But also, uh, it's the talk of the town. These people got divorced.
I know somebody in
So
the community. Sorry, I know someone in the community that she left her abusive husband and went to police, and she got disfellowship because she went to the police. And she recorded. She tried to go back, and she recorded her conversations with her committee, the judicial committee, and they were telling her unless she stopped that police complaint and forgave him and got back with him, they would not let her become a Jehovah's Witness again.
that's crazy. Now, let's shoot over to Sam here. What is the It's saying that I can't unmute you because your mic isn't connected. So maybe we'll come back around, Sam. I don't know if you want to work that out. Mary, what is your former cult's views on divorce?
There is no reason to ever get a divorce. They would never allow it. If you were to go get a divorce, you would be shunned and excommunicated. You can never be a full member of the church.
Now, somebody in our comments asked us about about the Amish community, Mary, and maybe you could address this. Now, with the Jehovah's Witness organization, if you're excommunicated, there is a pathway back. When you get kicked out of your community, is it forever?
There is a pathway back. Let's see. They'll do it for a time. It depends on what the situation is. But as far as like if you join the military, if you have tattoos, if you have piercings, if you're gay, like there's a whole slew of things I'm sitting on here, by the way, that do not allow me. I would not have a path back to the community because I'm committing all these egregious acts by having 6 tattoos and, you know, being married to a woman and just stuff like that.
Okay, Sam. What about the Mormon Church? What's the official church policy about divorce?
Well, I'll tell you, but you got to mute me first, please.
Really, honestly, you want me to mute you?
Sam, I don't know if you know, but the reason why you're muted is because we're still getting the echo from you.
Oh, no, I understand that. And I tried to hook up headsets, and it basically muted me on my side. I never could get it to work.
Sam, if you'd like, after the podcast is over, I can try and help get you through that if you want to.
Super, I'd appreciate that. Okay, so divorce in the Mormon community is kind of a complicated issue for numerous reasons. But there are basically 2 kinds of divorces. One is a civil divorce, and the other is a temple divorce. Because if you get married in the temple, that's different than the civil. Married in the temple is both civil and a Mormon sealing forever. It's kind of a beautiful concept. You get married in the temple, that means you're going to be guaranteed that you're going to be with your spouse forever. Maybe that's not terribly comforting to spouses that don't like living with their spouse in the first place. But anyway, there you got those 2 types. But let's just talk about the civil. There's no stricture that you get in trouble if you get a divorce. There's nothing in doctrine that you shouldn't get a divorce. But it's kind of in the culture that you were a failure if you got a divorce. The going through the divorce process or marriage counseling or figuring things out is complicated because the leader of your congregation, the bishop, who people look to for all the spiritual guidance, he has 0 training. So he's giving marriage counseling with zero training to do that. So I was a bishop for 5 years. I had a few people come to me, and never the men, always the women. And I referred some of them to what's called the LDS Social Services, which is meant to give professional counseling. But generally, you've got a bishop, the head of the congregation, that is involved with figuring things out, that doesn't know what he's doing. He's going to give bad advice frequently. Now, but once a couple is divorced, there's no policy against that. But they do kind of have a little bit of a red letter on them that is a single woman, a divorced woman. And some congregations, it doesn't make a lot of difference. Some congregation, that divorced woman is going to feel very out of place, feel very lonely. Now, but the temple side of it, the temple marriage. So when you get married in the temple, you are sealed for all time here and for eternity. So if you get a divorce, you get a civil divorce, you still have that temple marriage in place. A man cannot, a man or a woman can't get that temple marriage broken without approval from the first presidents, the highest levels of the church leadership. For men to get it, they basically can't. If you want to get a divorce from the woman, you can't unless the woman says, actually, it's almost never approved. So if he marries, if he's divorced, he's got his temple marriage, he's sealed to a woman that's no longer his civil wife, and he wants to marry another woman, and he marries in the temple, he's basically sealed to 2 women in heaven. So Mormons still have this polygamy thing. It's just not here. It's in heaven.
Yeah.
That may not, the new wife may not like that he's sealed to another woman, but he's in a bind because the church doesn't like to break that unless the woman says she wants to. Now, on the other side, the woman, let's say the woman is going to get married and she wants to remarry in the temple. Well, the church looks much more favorably on that she can get that temple sealing canceled or get a temple divorce, but it is cumbersome to do that. It is humiliating. It makes me want to swear because my mother went through this process. Spencer, can I swear on this show?
Yeah.
I can. God damn it.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, what my mother was put through to try to, she divorced from my dad. I love my mom and dad. Both of them are great, but they ended up getting a divorce. And then she wanted to be sealed to another man. She married another man. My dad married another woman. She wanted to marry in the temple to this new man, be sealed for eternity. So she needed to get a temple divorce. The man can marry a whole bunch of women in the temple. The woman can only be sealed to one. So to be sealed to her new husband, she has to get a temple divorce. So here's the process for that temple divorce. God damn it. I really hate this doctrine of the Mormon church. It has harmed so many, humiliated so many women, including my own mother. You have to go in and interview with your bishop and tell him all the stuff, why you want to get a divorce. And you have to review all of your past sexual indiscretions, all of them. So if you're 60, that's going back to teenage years. If you're 25, it's going back to your teen. It's everything. Then you go to the stake president, which is your bishop. Then you've got a next level of ecclesiastical authority. That's a regional leader. You have to tell him all this stuff too. And then you have to write it all down. You got to write a letter that has all your sexual indiscretions for the history of your life, because the bishop and the stake president, they can't annul that temple marriage. It has to be the very highest levels of church authority. So they have to write a letter with all the, I had sex with this man when I was 17 years old. Then I did this. Then I did, it's humiliating to have to write down all this stuff for your entire life. And that then gets sent to the first presidency. Who knows who's going to read that? So you've already told it to two men. And now you've got to have it all written down. And who knows who's going to read about all this stuff. In my mother's case, she had to write this letter 3 times, because the first 2 times, she only wrote it twice. The first 2 times, they came back and said, we need more detail, or you don't have the right tone, or you need to correct this. Really? How humiliating is that? How many times do I have to tell you that I had sex with these 3 men over the course of my 60 years of life, and the details of them? And how many men do I have to tell that to? And how many times do I have to write it down to get it right? She did it twice. They came back and said, you need to do a 3rd time. At that point, she gave up and said, it's not worth it. So she never married. I mean, she likes this now, that she was never sealed to this other man in the temple. She's still married to my dad that she divorced civilly, who's also married to another woman. Anyway, it just in the temple. So it really is any Mormons listening out there, this is a horrendous practice that you allow your women, your mothers, your children to be submitted to. Okay, so there's my say on divorce. You probably should have muted me, but there you go.
No, not at all, Sam. I wanted to say really quickly that also within the Jehovah's Witnesses, if you get an unscriptural divorce, I want to be clear that you cannot marry someone else, because you will be considered an adulterer. You're committing adultery. There's a scripture that they use to justify it. But yeah, if you get like you said, a temple, you call it a temple marriage or something like that. We call it an unscriptural divorce. You're tied to that person in the church's eyes forever. Because you didn't, and then if you marry another, you commit adultery. So we're gonna wrap up here. I'm sorry, hang on 1 second. I'm getting a little feedback there. We're gonna wrap up here. We lost Cal, but Cal looks like he wanted to ask you a question as it relates to temple activity, and we wanted to actually talk about what it's like to go into our own temple services, but we kind of ran out of time. But I wanted to give Mary the floor because she gave me some interesting information, not only about her video, but some interesting information. I guess what we call this activism, Mary, that you will be partaking in. So I want you to go ahead and tell our audience that. So I'm going to give you the floor.
So I've kind of been working on this video that is targeting more or less healthcare providers, law enforcement officials, judges, district attorneys like CPS, DHS, services like that that may come in contact with Amish people, because there's been a historically huge problem where they're very wary of actually interacting, and when they do interact, they probably don't know the right steps to take and how to interact, because there's a lot of little cultural barriers that are there, to include like education, language, different cultural norms than what you see in the quote English world, and also the fear of, like, as soon as they bring up their religion piece, they tend to just allow them to get away with whatever or give them a slap on the wrist, and that needs to stop. We have the situation where there was a 12-year-old girl, or 13, one or the other, in Seymour, Missouri, in the United States, who she was raped by 4 of her brothers. And in that case, the prosecuting attorney actually advocated for the rapists and said that they would be eaten up by the prison system and declined to give them any prison time, which, by the way, they have already violated probation and been sent to prison at this time. But in the same token, that kind of stuff needs to stop happening. And I feel like if we can educate people a little bit better about how to interact with them and understand like certain things, that we might be able to stop that happening from one side. And then the other thing is somebody that I know, Rachel Hawley, she created a website called AmishRescueMission.org, and there is a poster there that we would like to ask people, if you live around Amish people, if you could possibly put those posters out on bulletin boards or help us spread the words. There's a phone number there that they can use if they can maybe get to a place where they can use a phone, because usually most Amish communities do have a phone shanty that sometimes people do end up using. So I just really, really like to ask people to try to help educate the Amish children and the people who come in contact with these communities, because there is a big problem and they're being allowed to commit horrible crimes and get nothing for it. I mean, half the time they don't even do investigations. And we would really appreciate any support you can give us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that. And I wanted to go around the glass table to get any final thoughts. Maybe you can let us know what you're doing, what you got coming up next. You want to start with us? Start off, Cal. Do you have
well,
any final thoughts? I know we usually close with the suicide prevention and that kind of stuff. So
I do always talk about every, so far, all 3 or all 2 of the ones I've been on thus far, not counting this one. I do like to end by saying that if anyone out there is feeling in any way like they need to harm themselves, that there are resources available online and over the phone, through chat lines and through phone lines. Most of them are 24/7. I think all of them are 24/7, and every nation does have its own. Google will give you anything you need to know, and there's no judgment there. Say the same thing I say every time. Don't do what I did, and just try and power through it. Do try and find help, because that is definitely something that really helps when you go search for it. So definitely search for help sooner rather than later. As for anything else I'm doing, I'm not, much to my chagrin, I'm not really much of an activist. I don't really actually go out and do much. If you search for Calut McMahon, I think that's what my Facebook name is. I'm currently restricted on Facebook. Facebook hasn't told me why yet, but I'm restricted until the 28th. But feel free to hit me up there if you need to talk about anything. I cannot at all promise that I will be able to give good help, but I'll try my best, and that I can promise.
Well, we appreciate you, Karen. As far as activism, I would say for the last 3 episodes, you have been very actively exposing the Mormon church. So maybe it's maybe a spark or some beginning of activism. I don't know, in your future, or maybe of a podcast. Well, who knows?
I'd like to start a podcast. I don't know that it would be about religions, though. But
Okay.
this microphone is actually designed, for stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I was looking at
And
that. That's what
ASMR, I think.
Okay.
This is a really expensive mic that I don't use for the things that I should, though. But it has a setting here on the back for ASMR.
Oh, I
Don't know
love
what that's
ASMRs.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I love
But
it.
so hit me up on Facebook. I might put together like a burner number just in case anyone wants to just hit me up there. So
All right.
maybe if y'all have me back again, I'll have a burner number by that time I can give away. But
For sure.
as of right now, I don't really want to give away my personal number. But yeah, Facebook, Calut McMahon. I think I set it to that like when I was 15, and then now Facebook won't let me change my name anymore. So hit me up there if you want to talk about anything.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
And I'd like to say,
sorry.
Good luck to everyone. If you out there are still in a cult, good luck. Shit sucks, but it's it'll get better when as you work for it. That didn't come out the way I intended it to, but I'm sure you got the point.
Of course, Cal. I just want to thank you so much. We probably should do another one. Maybe do a different. I think we wanted to do a meme off between ex-Mormons and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. So we definitely want you back for commentating on that.
Hell yeah, I'm a Zoomer. I know my memes.
Okay, yeah, you got to get us some good memes, and we're gonna have a little meme war, and y'all kind of rate the memes. We're gonna see how the cult memes go. Sam Young, did you have?
Let's see. Okay. Final thoughts. Okay, Spencer, I'm going to vote for you for being the next presidential debate moderator. You are great with that mute button. You're so right.
I hope that's a compliment.
Well, I guess I want to say I've really enjoyed being on these this couple of episodes. It's been delightful to get to know you all. I'd like to know you better. As we were thinking here, I was thinking, why don't we all pick a place we can go to and just chat over a meal? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, we've got folks all the way across the sea. That might be a little challenge to do, but I just have really enjoyed
thank you so much, Sam, and we have enjoyed your perspective. Thank you for pouring into our podcast with all of the history, and even if you guys are just joining us or haven't joined us for other episodes, Sam is the founder of help me out, I'm sorry,
Protect Every
Child. So where can people reach you if they have any questions or want to follow up with you after the podcast?
Probably the easiest place is on Facebook. My Facebook profile, Sam Young, is open to the public. We also have a Facebook page for the organization for Protect Every Child, so you can reach me right there.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I should have got your organization right. I knew it. It just slipped my mind.
And there's a website for that too, protecteverychild.com.
Right. Absolutely. So if you want to know more about Protect Every Child, Sam Young actually in our last episode, or his first episode on here, which is the second episode for us, Cults versus Cults Part 2, had a feature where he actually talked about a lot of that. So, and again, if you want to reach him, he's saying that his Facebook is public, y'all, so y'all can reach. Sorry, I don't know what happened where I'm muted. So I guess that kind of wraps us up. I'm kind of looking in our comments here.
Oh,
to
Can I
try to
really quick?
sure.
I think it's this is just something that has nothing to do with anything. I just thought this was really funny. On YouTube, I have the YouTube stream on my other monitor here. The up next video for YouTube autoplay is Water of Life Community Church Sunday service. So, I just thought that was kind of funny. I just thought I'd bring that one up.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And people in the comments, we want to say thank you. I know we went a little over, but thank you for staying with us on Facebook and Twitter. I know that's a new avenue, a new platform for us, and also of all our Facebookers. Our platform is mainly we have our main audience is a Facebook audience, but we are really glad that you have joined us. It looks like a lot on YouTube today. Thank you for that, Miss Emma. I had to put flash it across the screen. That is so nice of you to say. As far as muting you, Sam, okay, we gonna work that out in the future episodes. So I think Cal, you really good. You seem like you're really good with this kind of stuff.
Sam, if you'd like to stick around after the show, I can try and help you figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm gonna go ahead, Cal.
I was just gonna say I did like Shannon's idea of maybe doing a little culty game, maybe set up like a Kahoot or something.
Now that is something that actually is possible. That's really possible. We have been discussing doing a game night on the Glass Table live. That would be actually fun.
Oh yeah, we could boot up Tabletop Sim, play some fucking Monopoly.
Or wake up play Cards Against Humanity.
Why do you hate us so much?
There's an online Cards Against Humanity. I suggested that as a show like a while back. But can I just say, Sam, Mary, Cal, I've loved having you here. And even though we started off as like we're actually an extra witness platform, so to speak, I've loved the varied viewpoints. And honestly, if you guys want to come back, please do. Like, we don't have to do like strict like what did your ex-cult believe kind of thing, but you guys have been great. It's been great having perspectives from different point of views, and personally I found it really enjoyable.
Perspective is always a great thing. Being able to see the way that things happen elsewhere and being able to compare. So can't agree with you there.
All right, guys. So make sure you join us. I didn't get a chance to grab our latest events, but if you could see the scrolling ticker across the screen, if you want to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get the latest updates and events for the Glass Table Live. Extending the invitation out to you guys, as Emma was saying, Sam Young and Mary Cal. If you go on to those to our page, we kind of try to do the topics in advance, and any one of them that you feel like you want to jump on, just let us know. Also,
sure.
Yeah, so I don't have our title for our next stream. Does anybody know what the title of our next stream is?
Well, next week we're on break.
Are we?
So
again?
Yeah. Well, we wasn't on break last week because we pre-recorded Halloween in advance, so it felt like a break, but it wasn't a break. Right. Aired on Saturday instead.
Right.
So next week is a break, and I haven't put the new events up yet because I think the one when we come back, we was going to do Don't Spare the Rod. So where like parents were encouraged to spank children, and what we all went through that. So if the guys wanting to come back for that, it's another topic that we could discuss, like how in each cult we were told to like punish our kids, because I think my brother got like proper beatings and stuff, which wasn't nice. So it'd be interesting.
Yes. Don't spare the rod. That is the title. And that particular episode, as Emma was saying, is talking about physical, because we actually in the Jehovah's Witness community, I like to say that we focus on sexual abuse, but there's a lot of physical abuse. I remember putting up a post, I think it was in your group, Emma, and it was flooded with comments and stories of people, ex-Jehovah's Witness, who endured physical abuse because the parents kind of took the guidance of the cult a little bit further. than they should have. And Molly, you were going to say something? Okay.
You'd have 5-year-olds dragged out of a 2-hour meeting out the back and given a walloping because they couldn't sit still for 2 hours. And they're like,
Right.
if it's like ridiculous what kids went through. So, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, I was about to say, because it's like not almost Christmas, and let's not act like it is. It's fucking November. Chill the fuck out with the Christmas stuff, please. But because
I'm sorry, Molly. I got
grew
my
up
tree up, so I put my tree up this weekend.
It's fine. You're allowed. You get a pass. Because I love you. You get a pass because I love you. But I plan, if not with the glass table, just on my my account, to go live and chat on like the Christmas days, because I grew up in a shitty ass household. I loathed Christmas. It felt very isolating and just very ostentatious and obnoxious. So anyone who wants to speak to someone and not feel shitty and alone, especially with lockdowns and quarantine and all that, then that should be something that you should be aware of, that I'm going to be doing. And it's going to be like a virtual dinner kind of thing, just sitting down, chatting, spending some time with friends and people who understand and who you can be yourself with, especially if your family is shitheads like mine.
All right, so you guys, that you have that to look up upcoming with Molly around the Christmas season. She is planning a chat for those who may be alone or need someone to talk to in the holiday season. For me, my husband and I, we are trying to debut the XJW Cafe again. I want to thank everybody who follow us and who've been asking about us, sending us emails, sending us PMs about it. Our first podcast back, we will be reflecting on our first voting experience. This is the first time that we voted in the presidential election. And if you watch the beginning of the stream, that's kind of a big deal, because as we went over, Jehovah's Witnesses were forbidden to vote. It's actually an excommunication offense. So you can look out for that for us this Saturday. And we have another announcement to make then. So we want to thank you so much. We want to hang out and chat afterwards. If you want to hang out and chat afterwards, panel, please do. Carol, looks like you got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I need to get attention really quick. Irene there on Facebook has just said that she is from Australia. I was curious if maybe she could answer my question from earlier.
Irene, so it's the morning time.
So, Irene, were you? I understand that with lag and whatnot, it's going to be difficult to answer this in a timely manner. But are you or were you a JDub?
Yes, Irene is a former Jehovah's Witness, I believe.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, Irene, with mandatory voting laws in Australia, how do you do that with the Jehovah's Witness anti-government thing?
So, Irene, if you want to go ahead and answer that question for Cal in the comments. He's asking whether or not Australia one is forbidden from voting, I believe, and how as a Jehovah's Witness, you navigated through that.
Also, Sam, really quick, I'm sorry, man. Love your voice, but like the echo, man.
Yep, I'm sorry. We got Sam on the robot.
Sorry about that, man. It's just so rough. It's like a speech jammer, honestly.
So we're gonna stay backstage, and thank you so much for joining us and staying with us for these couple hours. Again, we're on break next week for a self-care break, and then you can join us for our show or our live stream entitled "Don't Spread the Word," where we talk about physical discipline within the Jehovah's Witness community. So thank you. We're going to sign off now, and we will see you the week after next. Make sure you follow the page and subscribe. Bye.